Hi, this is Doug Howard, President of Growth Team Strategies with Kathi Fleck, one of our senior consultants. And we're here today with another episode of Selling the Dream. And I just realized, Kathi, that I believe I introduce the podcast each week with a completely different set of words. So I don't know if that shows my level of creativity or my inability to follow a 2-sentence script. But either way, welcome. Good to see you here.
You too.
All right. So today we're going to talk about kind of an uncomfortable subject. I like uncomfortable subjects. I feel like those always elicit the best conversation. I hate all this happy-go-lucky stuff,
We'll see where it goes on a Friday.
Yeah, I don't like, Munchkins singing happy songs and things like that. You know what I mean? Anyhow, so the bottom line is that for many businesses, when they have a succession going on, and sometimes it's with a successor that's been in-house, sometimes it's with a family member, sometimes it's when you're going through the sales process, but we've identified a buyer, right? And now we're working through that transition period of time. For some, it may be a little longer if it's someone that we've known as a successor. But even, like when you sold your business, it was what, 3, 4, 6-month period of time from finding that person to getting the deal all the way done. Yeah. So, and you didn't have this experience, and I didn't when I sold mine either, but I've seen it happen a number of times, was once we got all that in place, all of a sudden the business starts to perform poorly. Something bad happens. We lose an account. The economy shifts. Margins get tight. Cash flow gets disrupted. And now all of a sudden we got the challenge of, this is the deal we struck. This is where things were. These were all the expectations. And now we're in this situation where things are headed in the wrong direction. So I guess, first of all, obviously without too much in details, I mean, have you seen this when someone's sort of at that point of getting ready to sell and it's like, hey, this place isn't in the greatest shape, or things are actually moving somewhat in the wrong direction and we got some challenges there?
I haven't really seen that happen that way, but I do know when somebody is selling a business and let's say a bank is financing, like for an SBA loan.
Yep.
They're looking at past records over a period of years. And so if you can see the trends over a period of years, 3 years, 5 years, that is where the business is selling. So I know when I sold mine, the buyer came on in September, and it should have taken 3 months to close, but it took 6 because he wanted to find a different banker at the end. So I did have that 6-month time frame, but actually my sales and my records were all going in the right direction. But I think if they were going in the wrong direction, you still have that time to be able to get through it. So I'm going to say maybe go out and find some more business. You can't really do anything about the economy, but you do have the history of the company.
Yeah. Now, what if like a key employee during that period of time, not because they know that there's going to be a sale, but just by happenstance, quits?
I think you
Right?
hurry and find a replacement.
Yeah, but that can be pretty challenging because I've gone from now portraying this business as solid, stable. Here's an 18-year employee or whatever it happens to be. And at best, I'm going to have a 3-month employee, even if I do find someone to step into that role.
I think part of that is really preparing. Most buyers, I think, are going to be somewhat business savvy. So I think at that point they realize that there's not a whole lot of control over an employee. Now, if everybody just up and left, that might be a little different story. But
sure,
I do think there's they're buying the stability of the company and the past of what the company has performed, expecting the future to be able to go in the same direction. So I think it's a slip, but I do think that there should be enough stability in the company that it would be able to override that.
So if you had sort of accepted an offer and we've gone through that process and something like that happened, and I came back to you as the buyer and said, Kathi, that's all well and good. We're going to have some ups and downs, but this has happened and I don't think it's worth as much anymore. What do you do with that conversation?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or you lose a big account or a big project, right?
Yeah. I think I still go back to the history, and that's just how business goes. And I will stay on longer to help build the business back up or make some other negotiation there. I don't know about the sale of the business being less.
Yeah,
I have a hard time doing that. Like say, okay, well, I'll just take something off of it.
yeah,
Because I'm going to look at the history of the business and what it's done and my capabilities and do whatever it took to help that new buyer, pick
sure.
back up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a really, really good point. Because, even when we think about the valuation, we talked about valuations and things like that.
Mhm.
If we're negotiating with somebody, and during that period of time, even after we've kind of reached an arrangement, there's a period of time before they own the business. The period of time from when we actually get the valuation could be quite a bit longer, back the other way, right? It could have been 6 months
True.
ago we got that valuation.
Hmm.
So, if during that period of time we're selling the business and then we find somebody and then we're having the transition, it could be almost a year from when that valuation is done until the actual transaction's done, right?
True, true.
A lot of stuff can happen.
They're still pulling financials on a regular basis. I know mine was. So in September, mine was September of 22, 21, September
Yeah,
of 21. They were looking at all of 21. And then even at the end of the year, when they had to get when the buyer got a new bank, they were then looking at all of 21. And
yeah,
so it was continuous bringing in financials to see that that trend was there. So if they were going down, I think you can explain that. It happens. You're gonna end up seeing that. I guess the buyer could decide to back out, and then you'll be stuck having to go find another buyer.
yeah, yeah,
Or I don't know what, I just think if they're going to start trying to devalue the business, I just think that goes in the wrong direction for the seller, and it's like, why bother selling?
yeah. No, but I like the idea of let's build in some accommodations. Maybe there's some things we can do, but I think this all lends itself to the fact. Then, Kathi, we're in that mode. We're always pushing for more. We'd like to see the numbers go up, but I think there's also certain things that companies can do to make sure that they're shoring things up and not having things go the other way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I see some companies that do a great job with employee retention activities. You know, they're really in tune with that, how they compensate, how they bonus, how they connect. It seems to me whether or not the team knows that there's a transition in the offing or not, right? That's a really good time to start saying, okay, like what are we going to do a year out, right?
Mm-hmm.
To start saying, okay, let's shore up our key people. Let's give them some incentives to be around. Maybe a
Mm-hmm.
multi-year bonus situation that really speaks to, you know, making sure they're not out on the job market, or, you
Yes.
know, even maybe some of the extra effort that we make to build the pipeline or to, reestablish some referral sources, or, because I think when you start winding down, you actually start doing less of those things.
Right. I think you and I've talked about this multiple times about the necessity of a business owner to keep riding it all the way through. It's like anything else. I'm not a big sports person, but you could use an example of a golfer or a baseball player. They have to
Yeah.
take that swing all the way through in order to make sure that that's going to be a successful hit.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with a business owner. You have to continue working the staff. If you've lost somebody, you get that ad out and get started right away in replacement. You're still selling. You don't stop any of that
Yeah.
until it's done.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's random that you chose sports other than basketball to use as references. That's fine. That's okay. That's all right. I understand there's still a little hurt there. I get it. But but your point's well taken nonetheless, right? So beyond that, though, I think you're exactly right. I think that we got to realize that. But I also think there are certain things that you do when you're looking to continue to grow and keep your foot on the gas. There's other things that you can do that you do to make sure that that downside is limited. And I
Mhm.
think that's something people really need to focus on. It's like, let's really shore things up. Even to the point where I've had some conversations with folks who say, listen, this employee really is not great, right? Like they're really struggling, like you don't want to leave that for the next person. You don't want to leave that volatility for the period of time when you're like cleaning up some of those things, addressing those issues, I think is really important.
I think
I
that's
also think,
a
good.
really I think that sends a really good message, because if a buyer is coming in and she sees that you had to let an employee go, or you're on top of it with any of those issues, I think that's going to be extremely impressive to the new owner of
Yeah,
the
no,
company.
I think so too. And I think, a big part of it too is this whole notion of culture. The culture of an organization could drive its value tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
It drives retention, it drives just the whole atmosphere. And maybe if, someone's out there that's thinking about selling and that's really not been their thing, and, if you've owned a business for 15, 20 years and you're a year away from selling, it might seem like an odd time to sort of start embracing the culture.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's an important time to do things like really show appreciation, really bring a little bit of fun and flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
into the workforce, right? I know someone that we're working with the other day was talking about the importance of maintaining a flexible summer schedule, even
Mm-hmm.
though it creates some operational challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those things we want to make sure that we kind of reinforce, because they seem to me to say, well, it may slow down our upside a little bit, but I'm okay with slowing down our upside if it also, mitigates what our downside could be. Because the worst thing that happens is we're getting closer to the finish line, and all of a sudden, things aren't where they need to be, and we just don't
Yeah.
have time to get them back to where they need
Yeah.
to go.
Or you may have to take the business off the market for a while and get it back going back. Some
Exactly.
people, when they're ready to sell, don't have that energy anymore. They don't
Yeah.
want to keep going with it. They're ready emotionally and mentally to be done.
Right. And we see that with folks that have deals fall through, right? You
Mm-hmm.
get that enthusiasm of like, okay, we're there, we're done, we're counting the days, we're winding stuff up, and then it falls through and it's like, well, where does that leave me now? You
Yeah, it's
know?
very deflating. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think folks contemplating is, because I know we're always talking about 3 years out, 5 years out,
Mm-hmm.
looking down the road. I think identifying those things that'll make the company that much safer and
Mm-hmm.
stronger going through that
Mm-hmm.
final stretch is something that's really worth folks putting some effort into
Right.
and making sure that's part of the plan, part of the
Mm-hmm.
equation. Because I think you're right. That sends very strong signals to the person coming in, the person buying.
Right. Right. And it might be that the seller has to stay on a little bit longer or be more available
Yeah.
for assistance. Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good. All right, Kathy, thanks so much. I know as we're going forward, we're going to be talking to more folks that outside like service providers that impact the buying, selling process, and also more people that have been through the buying and selling
Mm-hmm.
process. Um, because there's just so many different little things, right, that can make such a big difference. And we always want to
Mm-hmm.
stay focused on that. So, all right. Well, thanks so much. And that's another episode of Selling the Dream, right?
Thanks, Doug.
Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Selling the Dream podcast starring Doug Howard and Kathi Fleck. Both Doug and Kathi have built and sold successful businesses and hope this podcast will help other small business owners do the same. Tune in every week to hear more tips for increasing the value of your company so you get the highest return for your years of hard work when it comes time to sell or transition your business. Can't wait till next week? Check out our website for more information at www.growththemes.com.